can you capture the rich and vivid colours of an industrial area using film that expired in the year 2000? Today we're going to try and answer that question. The loneliness of the empty car park. Just trying. I'm going for a vertical shot, and it's really just about trying to fill in the frame with lots of layers. Let's get down onto our hands and knees. And then love a bit of minimalism. I'm going to go for the shallowest depth of field. Only f4.2 on this 24 to 85 lens, but don't we all need to slow down? So it's New Year's Day morning and everybody's at the beach. So I'm here at the local industrial area to try and capture colour. More specifically, I'm trying to capture colour with Kodacolor 100, which expired in the year 2000. So I'm shooting with my Nikon F100, which is really probably the closest thing I have to a professional camera, and my 24 to 85 f, is it a 3.5 to 4.5? I think it's a 3.5 to 4.5. F 3.5 to 4.5 G, and this one has VR, and that's the main reason I'm using this lens, is because this lens distorts madly, which is terrible for architecture photography, which is most, I guess, of what I'm doing if you count corrugations as architecture. But the good thing about this is that with its vibration control, I've got a really good chance of using slow shutter speeds. My ISO 100 film, being 2 decades old, is effectively ISO 25. I do love me a little bit of rust, and particularly if I can get my head in there, you've got this personalized story. Little ramble through not quite the countryside. Let's go back and check in on future me and see how we went on, first with the F100, then with the 24 to 85 lens, and of course with the Kodacolor 100 expired film. Thanks, past me. Let's talk about this film. Let's talk about Kodacolor 100. Or should we? Because how can you really evaluate a film that, well, expired 20 years ago? It's like judging French pastry by eating a 3-week-old croissant, or my sandwich making after I found my daughter's school lunch in her old bag 3 years after she'd moved to Melbourne for university. Yes, that did happen, and no, I didn't eat it. I'm saving it for when she comes home to visit. But I did shoot this film. Now, I couldn't find out very much about Kodacolor 100. Wikipedia mentions a Kodacolor Gold 100 film that was discontinued in 1997, but the only listing for a 100-speed Kodacolor that wasn't gold was a film that they stopped making in, 1963 or something. So this is kind of a mystery box, but that would be true anyway, given that you're unlikely to really know the personal history of any roll of expired film that you buy. I can only guess that this film is a consumer-grade film. Since it doesn't have a gold moniker, maybe it's a bit more neutral in terms of color. My deep forensic analysis, otherwise known as reading the back of the box, tells me that this was made in the USA, perhaps for an overseas market, given the funny writing in red. Google Translate was a little bit hit and miss in this case, let's face it. Could it be a little bit more like Color Plus or maybe Pro Image 100? The same speed, low grain, punchy colors. Pro Image is made for an overseas market, supposedly tolerant to heat and humidity, so that would make sense if it was a similar formula. Please, if you know anything about this film, do let me know. In any case, I very much doubt it's quite the same film as it was 20 years ago. I developed it in fresh Cinestill CS41 chemistry, and the film base came Well, it came out a strange greeny colour with a little bit of fogging, but as you saw, I managed to get usable images from it. Now, before we move on, let's talk a little bit more about the camera and lens. One of the reasons I was using my Nikon F100 is because I trust its matrix metering and I know that I'll get at least consistent exposure throughout the roll. The other reason is that for once I didn't need a particularly compact setup. The lack of people meant that I wasn't drawing attention to myself as some kind of potential pervert, private investigator, or beardy analog hipster. The Nikon 24-85 lens, it's a mixed offering. As I mentioned, it's sharp and the built-in vibration reduction saves you several stops of light with still or slow-moving subjects. But it's not the best film lens, largely because, as mentioned, it does distort wildly. Straight out of the camera, the results are horrible. Pincushing in one end of the zoom range, barrel distortion at the other. It's easily corrected in Lightroom. It's a fiddly and unpleasant manual process, but fortunately the distortion is quite regular. Of course, that's not going to help you if you print in the darkroom. But if that's part of your process, you're already way far too down the dark rabbit hole of film, and you're probably lost to the world, so who cares? I did follow the overexposed 1 stop per decade rule, and 2 stops of overexposure did seem about right. My scanning process is always a manual one. I don't use Negative Lab Pro, although I probably should. I just scan it as a raw image and then invert it, adjust the colors in Lightroom. I do have a bad habit of trying to correct film when I scan it. And if I find myself getting to the point where I'm having to split tone, then it's usually a sign that I don't have confidence in the film color or I've exposed or developed wrong. There didn't really seem to be any perfect or sweet spot for correction here, so pretty much what you see is what you get with this particular roll. And honestly, I don't mind it. I don't know what happened in those first couple of shots. I was probably trying to bring out colors that just weren't there, but it's almost like it kind of settled down as I went along. Some of the others had nice, albeit not very natural tones. Balancing out the white in this image gave the sky a beautiful azure quality, and I quite liked some of the pastel-y greens I got from the foliage. It's not the same green as I saw on the video, and it's certainly not the same as you get in real life though. I was lucky to be gifted this roll along with a few other random ones by my brother-in-law who found a shop in Spain selling expired film. The first one didn't turn out. But more fool me. Look, really, there's absolutely nothing on this one, but that's because I exposed at box speed. And look, it's Agfa Vista, and I loathe that film with a passion even when it's in date, so no great loss there. But this roll actually turned out interesting. Am I a convert to the world of expired film? No. I didn't find God in the grain of my Kodacolor any more than I did in the burn pattern of my toast I had this morning for breakfast. As you see though, I did find religion. Not my religion, let's face it. At Victory Life, God loves everyone unless you're gay, in which case you're an abomination. Look, if I really wanted to indulge a remote and unobtainable religious fantasy, you'd find me peering in the windows of a Leica store. That's a good enough altar to worship at least until the celestial spaghetti monster arrives to deliver me from the industrial wasteland to a magical world where unicorns poo rainbows and 58mm Nock Z lenses. I do suspect, though, that I'm headed down the elevator to the basement where they keep the Casios and Kodak disc cameras. But I digress. I've really never seen the appeal of expired film. It seems like you're paying a huge premium for that low-mo aesthetic, and if I want to take shit photos, I can do that perfectly adequately myself without having to resort to a 40-year-old roll of overpriced Pantamatic. But this was fun, and arguably well up to the task of capturing the beauty of bin bags and barbed wire. There's something strangely calming about the minimalism of urban landscapes, and the weird colours kind of complemented rather than distracted from that. I'd love to read your comments though. Let me know your thoughts about the photos. Tell me if any of them were noteworthy. Seriously, I think I've taken some of my best photos so far this year. Now, I know that's not a hard call since it's January, but I'm worried I've actually peaked early. It'll probably be 11 more months of disappointment from here on in. If you want to share in that disappointment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Join me in my penance for the heretical religious commentary. Next video will be about sex and politics.